Today's gun control propaganda forecast calls for blizzards of butthurt, hailstorms of hysteria, and maelstroms of misinformation. Details at 11. Historically speaking, the corridor between New York and D.C. have been under a high-pressure hoplophobe system. However, we saw things change when in D.C. we saw a reciprocity event, which caused this entire system here to erupt in no less than 5 major misinformation storm cells, 3 of which were fed by L. Bloomberg to the north. Now, the effects will be felt within the blue highlighted areas in this map, and residents in this area can expect heightened snowflake activity. Fortunately, however, within the red shaded areas of this map will be largely unaffected thanks to proper gun education and a real understanding of what reciprocity and concealed carry is all about. But for more local news, I turn you over to Vincent Daniel. Take it, Vincent.
Thank you very much. I'm out here at the corner of I-40 and I-95, and I will tell you what, we have a whole bunch of stupid people here. The lady here in the pink kitty cat hat says that national reciprocity is going to be the tool of mass murders, and she also hates Donald Trump. I don't know where that came from, but she decided to go ahead and throw that on in there. I'm going to go ahead and give it on back to you in the office. Thank you.
An amendment was
I
added
know
to the
we
bill.
can't stop this bill. I know this is going to pass. There's no question about it. And we will add that to this litany of things about what you're doing with the tax bill, and then now we're going to all shoot each other, and no holds barred.
Where have I heard this before? Oh yeah, every single time carry laws have been relaxed, whether it be from may issue to shall issue or shall issue to concealed carry, there's always a slaughter that's predicted. But does it actually happen? The Violence Policy Center tends to think so. I mean, they have found 1,119 people killed by concealed carry practitioners. Except, here's what's missing. Now, if we go past the initial claims made on the first page into the actual data that they present, you will find that out of the 914 incidents that they present, the biggest chunk are suicides. Suicides. Don't get me wrong, suicides are tragic. But how does something that happens in private, that affects usually just the person perpetrating it and in itself is not a crime, constitutes a direct threat to public safety? I'll submit to you that it doesn't, except to serve as padding for these numbers right here, much like the pending cases here, but also to exploit the emotionalism that is inherent in a tragedy like suicide in order to make the case for gun control. Now, the reason that I discount the pending cases is because exactly that. They're pending right there. No definitive verdict has been made for the case. It could very well be a self-defense sort of case. So until that is determined, I am not going to be as quick to use it to pad stats as the VPC is. Now, this will still leave you with about 418 cases, including about 33 unintentionals. But there are a lot of sketchy cases that are mixed in with it. For example, there were a lot of cases, particularly in Texas and Minnesota and Michigan, where a weapon was not identified or a gun was not even used. And this scratches off about 66 from that total of 418. And incidents that were classified as unintentional had a lot of very questionable cases mixed in with there as well, a very high percentage of them. I found that most of them either didn't happen in a public place or were self-inflicted. And this scratched off easily about 25 out of the 33. So this reduces the number down from 418 to about 327. But bear in mind, this did not all happen in just 1 year, but rather over a span of about 10 years, which yields an average of about 33 incidents in a given year. That's 33 incidents nationwide. By way of comparison, Chicago outdid this number in 2016 by a factor of nearly 22. And every single month of 2016 saw about 40 shooting deaths in one city alone. And finally, I'm going to give you one number that the VPC does not mention, and in all likelihood never will. And that is an estimate of the number of concealed carry licensees in this country. Now, the Crime Prevention Research Center estimates that there are about 16 million active licensees in this nation. And so if you plug in that 33 into that 16 million, you come up with the earth-shattering figure of 0.2%, which means over 99.9998% of concealed carry licensees don't murder anyone per year. And thus ends the narrative of the Violence Policy Center, period. Now, touching on some other points of concern surrounding the National Reciprocity Bill, what about that study that came from Stanford that supposedly said that right to carry laws that were relaxed contributed to a state's increased violent crime rates? Well, first of all, that was not a study. It is what's called a working paper, which is to say that it's a rough draft for a full-blown study. Basically, you have a few researchers saying, we've got this hypothesis, we've got this methodology to test it, and here is kind of a dry run of what we've done. We're going to throw this out here and see what people think about it. Now, curiously enough, instead of letting this paper run its usual course through academia, it was submitted to the media, which wholeheartedly embraced it as a peer-reviewed study. However, its methodology was not refined. It was off. In fact, it contradicted a lot of real-world data, which showed that gun-related violent crime actually decreased during the time that the study was supposed to cover. Furthermore, it's kind of hard to imagine that 2/10,000ths of a population, which represents about 5% of the total U.S. population, would contribute that much to violent crime in this country. So it's questionable, probably won't make it much past the working paper stage. Matter of fact, it's been several months and it still hasn't made much progress in that regard. Okay, but then, well, what about politician X, Y, or Z telling us that this bill will make it easier for criminals to cross state lines with hidden weapons? Well, here's some news for you. Criminals have been doing that ever since they have been able to get their hands on guns. Now, this was a point of rhetoric all throughout the debates at the state level regarding relaxed carry levels going from may issue to shall issue, that it would somehow make it easier for criminals to carry guns. But, however, the experience has been throughout the 90s and the 2000s that gun-related violent crime has dropped. And so there's no reason for us to expect anything different on the national level. In fact, this National Reciprocity Bill does absolutely nothing to alter the basic legal requirements for the ownership, possession, and carrying of guns. To put it simply, you have to be 21 years old to legally own, possess, and carry a gun. You cannot be a felon, and there are certain places where you cannot take it. All of this dictated usually by federal law. And this also includes domestic abusers. The Lautenberg Amendment of 1996 had that covered. Now, why certain politicians who are trying to bring this up don't mention this either shows that they're either ignorant of the law or they're willfully trying to deceive you in the interest of pushing gun control. And that wraps it up. When it comes to concealed carry, the only thing that a carry practitioner or a gun rights advocate wants to hide from you is their hardware. However, when it comes to this very same issue, a gun control advocate wants to hide from you the whole truth.